None of us think we're the problem. That's the first thing to understand. The person who talks over everyone in the room, they don't hear themselves doing it. The one who makes every conversation about themselves, they're not aware that they're doing it again. The friend who gives advice that nobody asked for, they believe they're just being helpful. We are all, to some degree, running habits that we can't see, habits that are silently eroding how the people around us experience us. And the brutal truth is this: the smarter you are, the more self-aware you think you are, the more likely you are to have built at least one of these into your personality, so seamlessly it feels like just who you are. Today, we're going to go through all 8 psychological habits that quietly make people dislike you. This will give you a clear-eyed look at the specific behaviors that social psychology research shows consistently damage likability, trust, attraction, and connection, and how to fix them. Because once you can see them, you can change them. You know, we've been taught by social media that what other people think of you is none of your business. And while I appreciate that from one perspective, what we want in life, the opportunities we get, and the life we live can only be achieved when other people like us value us and trust us. And the way people perceive you, well, despite what social media tells you, you have more control than you think. This isn't about being a bad person. Every single habit on this list is something good people do. People who are genuinely kind, genuinely intelligent, genuinely well-intentioned. But intention is not the same as the actual impact you have on people and what other people feel in your presence, whether they feel seen, heard, valued, or whether they feel diminished or talked at or managed. This is what determines whether they want more of you or quietly start engineering ways to have less of you. Before we get into the habits, here's a psychological foundation that explains all of them. Human beings are wired above all else for connection. Our brains run a continuous background process. Am I safe here? Am I valued here? Does this person see me? And every interaction we have either answers that question with a yes or a no. The habits we're about to cover all have one thing in common. They answer that question with a no, quietly and subtly, in ways that other people can rarely articulate, but they can feel it. The first habit is that you give advice when people want acknowledgement. This is the most common likability mistake on the list, and the one that most people are completely blind to. Someone shares something difficult, a frustration, a failure, a fear, and before they've even finished the sentence, you're already formulating a solution. You mean well, you genuinely want to help, and it usually comes from a place of wanting to have something in common and build connection and help. But what you've just communicated without realizing it is that their feelings are a problem to be solved rather than you being there to listen. Psychologist Carl Rogers, whose work on empathy and unconditional positive regard, found that the most powerful thing that one human being can offer another, it's not advice, it's understanding. When people feel truly heard, their nervous system relaxes. When they feel like they're a problem being managed, it tightens up. The next time someone brings you something heavy, try this. Before you say anything, ask yourself, did they ask for a solution? If the answer's no, then don't give them one. Give them something that's much rarer and more valuable. Give them the feeling that you truly hear what they said. By saying something like, "That sounds really hard," you'll be worth more to them in that moment than any advice you could have offered. Think about it. We have a multitude of ways to search up any answer to any problem these days, but we don't have ways to get other humans to truly hear us and see us. Habit 2, you one up without realizing it. They went to Italy, you went to Italy, and also Tuscany, and also that tiny village outside of Florence that most people never find. They had a rough week, you had the same rough week, plus 3 other things happened. They're proud of an achievement, but you have a slightly bigger version of that same achievement. One-upping is almost never malicious. Most of the time it comes from a genuine desire to connect, to say, I understand, I've experienced this too. But what it does to the other person is the opposite of connection. It takes their moment and it makes it smaller. It shifts the spotlight from them to you, and it does it at the exact moment that they need it most. Social psychology research on self-esteem and social interaction shows that people consistently rate others as more likable when those people make them feel significant rather than competing with their significance. The fix is simple, but it does take real practice. When someone shares something, try and keep the focus there. Ask a question about their experience before you start reaching for your own. Let their story be the whole story for at least a few minutes. You'll be remembered as someone who made them feel like the most interesting person in the room, and there's almost nothing more magnetic than that. Habit 3. You use humor as a defense mechanism and people can feel it. Humor is one of the most powerful tools for human connection when it's genuine, and it's one of the most distancing ones when it's armor. There's a specific type of person who deflects every moment of real vulnerability, their own or someone else's, with a joke that no one asked for. And while it often gets a laugh, it leaves people with a subtle but persistent feeling that I can't reach this person. There's always a punchline between us. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability and connection is unambiguous on this point. The moments that build the deepest human bonds are the ones where we allow ourselves to be seen without performance. Constant humor in emotionally significant moments, it's not personality, that's just protection. And the people around you can feel the difference between laughing with you and being kept at arm's length by your humor. So try to learn to stay in the moment without escaping it. That willingness to be unfunny, uncertain, and real in front of someone is worth more than 10 perfect jokes. Habit 4, you barely listen, you just wait to talk. Researchers at Harvard have found that people spend up to 40% of conversations thinking about what they're going to say next, rather than actually listening to what's being said. 40%. That means almost half of every conversation you're partially absent. And here's the problem. People can feel it, not always consciously, but they feel that slightly glazed look, the response that doesn't quite land on what they actually said, and the way that you pivoted to your point just a bit too fast. And what they register somewhere beneath that awareness is that they're not being heard, they're being tolerated until it's your turn. Active listening, real full presence listening, is so rare that when people experience it, they describe the person doing it as extraordinarily compelling, warm, and intelligent. Journalist Kate Murphy, who wrote an entire book on listening, found that the single biggest predictor of being liked is making people feel like what they're saying is worth listening to. You don't have to be interesting to be likable. You have to be interested. So put down the internal script. Let the next thing they say determine the next thing you say, and the conversation will start to become something neither of you expected. And they'll walk away thinking that you're one of the most engaging people they've ever met. Habit 5, you qualify your compliments. Things like, that presentation was really good. I would have structured it differently, but the content was strong. Or, you look amazing. I could never pull that off personally. Or, that was such a brave decision. I'm not sure I would have done it, but good on you. A compliment with a tail is not a compliment. It's a compliment being used as a delivery vehicle for your own opinion, your own comparison, or your own positioning. And the person on the receiving end, they heard both halves, but trust me, they heard the second half more. Unqualified, genuine, positive regard from another person is one of the rarest and most valued social experiences that humans have. Most people qualify their compliments out of habit, out of a need to seem balanced, or because a pure compliment feels vulnerable. Here's my suggestion. Drop the tail. Say the good compliment and stop. Let it be whole. The version of you who can give a clean, full-stop compliment will be remembered as someone who genuinely saw that person, and that is someone that people like and want to be around. Habit 6. You make your discomfort someone else's problem. When the conversation goes somewhere you're not comfortable with, you change the subject. When someone is emotional, you get visibly awkward. When vulnerability appears, you exit, either physically, energetically, or conversationally. And in doing that, you send a message that you didn't intend. My comfort matters more than your experience right now. This is one of the most subtle likability killers on the list, because it's so easy to justify. You didn't really do anything wrong, you just didn't know what to say. You just needed some air. But psychologist John Gottman's research on emotional attunement, developed through decades of studying relationships, shows that the ability to stay present with another person's emotional experience without fixing it or running away from it, that's one of the most powerful predictors of trust and closeness. You don't have to say the right words. You could literally say, "I don't know what to say, but I'm here with you." That is one of the most connecting sentences in the English language. Learn to sit in the discomfort long enough for the other person to feel that they didn't make things harder just by being honest with you. Habit 7, you correct people in front of others. They got the date slightly wrong. The name was mispronounced. The statistic was off by a small margin, and you pointed it out in front of everyone with the best intentions because accuracy matters. You're being helpful, it wasn't a big deal. But here's what actually happened in that moment. You prioritized being right over making them feel safe, and the other people in the room noted it. Not loudly, but they did note it. And somewhere in the back of their minds, a quiet calculation happened. I need to be careful around this person because they might embarrass me. Research by social psychologist Robert Cialdini on influence and likability is very clear. People are drawn to those who make them feel good about themselves, and away from those who even gently make them feel publicly exposed. Public correction, however accurate and however kindly intended, creates a small but real social wound. If the correction really matters, find a private moment to do it. If it doesn't matter, just let it go. The social capital that you preserve by staying quiet in that moment is worth far more than the minor factual record you just set straight. Habit 8, you perform interest instead of feeling it. This one is the most sophisticated habit on the list, and it's the hardest to catch in yourself. You ask questions, but they're the questions that you're supposed to ask, not the ones that you're genuinely curious about. You nod, but you're not tracking. You maintain eye contact and you do all of the right things, but somehow the person across from you still walks away, feeling vaguely unseen because what you were performing was the surface of interest without the substance of it. And human beings are extraordinarily sensitive to this distinction. We've been reading authenticity and its absence for our entire evolutionary history. Psychologist James Pennebaker at the University of Texas found that genuine curiosity about another person, not performed interest, but actually wanting to know, produces measurably different physiological and behavioral signals that other people detect and respond to. You cannot fake at this deep level for long. The solution isn't to perform better, it's to find the thing about this person that genuinely interests you and start there. Everyone without exception has something worth being curious about. Your job is to find it before you decide there's nothing there. Here's what all 8 of these habits have in common. They're not character flaws. They're not signs that you're unkind or you're unaware or difficult. They're just patterns, learned, reinforced, and invisible precisely because people generally won't tell you when you're doing something minor that subtly pushes them away or turns them off you. The person who listens without waiting for their turn, the person who gives the cleanest compliment and stays in the uncomfortable moment without running away from it, the person who corrects in private and praises in public, who's genuinely not performatively curious about people in front of them. That person is not a different person, they're just more deliberate and mindful with their behaviors, and those people are the ones that others really like. So, here's what I want you to do. Think about the habits that are costing you. Stop defending patterns that are quietly pushing people away. Be brave enough to see your blind spots. Be bold enough to own them and practice doing better. Even if you focus on just one thing for the next few weeks, that'll soon become your new habit, and it will make a measurable difference in how people feel about you and how you feel about yourself. Music.